Hey YouTube, it's been a couple weeks since we've had a video. I've been busy with a lot of different stuff going on, haven't had time to film, but we're finally back on something that I've been wanting to get done for a long time. You can see we're here out at the goat barn. We're getting ready to move the goats back up here for the winter, but before that, we wanted to take care of something. They've kind of been not respecting the fence very well for several reasons. We've got an electric fence, and it's all 4-wire electric fence, and it's got a pretty heavy weed load on it. So right now we've got about a 30-mile fencer on there, and this is fencing in about 20 acres or so, but all the weeds and stuff drag it down pretty hard, so the fence isn't very hot all the time. So for a long time we've wanted to get a really nice fencer to put on it. So today we're going to work on installing this. So this is a Power Wizard fencer. It's from Kencove. You can see it even comes with a Kencove remote. This is kind of a beast of a charger. So this is a 24 output Joule fencer, so you see it says it's a 400-mile fencer versus our last one was a 30-mile 3 output Joule fencer. So we've borrowed a 6 Joule fencer a couple times, and it did a lot better than our 3. But we still had some issues. A couple times I had to go weed eat the fence or whatever to get the weeds off of it to bring the voltage back up. So this time we decided we'd invest in something that we wouldn't have to worry about. So 24 joules ought to take care of it, I would think. So this is a remote control model. So I've got this fault finder remote that comes with it, but also you see the on and off buttons. I can go out and touch this on the fence somewhere and hit the off button, and it will put the fencer in standby mode so that I can work on it, fix something, put it back on the fencer, and hit on. So that was something that we saw when we borrowed another Kencove fencer for a little while, and it's amazing. So we decided whenever we got a new one that we for sure wanted that feature. These are also priced pretty well. So this is about the cheapest, well, I say cheapest fencer. There are other cheaper fencers, but cheapest quality fencer that I could find for this many output joules. If I went with a Speedrite or a Gallagher or something, I'd be looking at least $1,500, probably $2,000 to $2,500 for a fencer this big. And this one was $730 something, $735 I think, and with the remote. The other thing, I've really kind of wanted to get a Cyclops fencer for a long time. They've looked pretty good. They're American made, and supposedly they're pretty tough, but they don't offer a unit with a remote yet. And after using that other one, that was just kind of a deal breaker. This one also is assembled. It says on the outside of the packaging, designed and assembled in the United States. So that's about as close to American made as you can get on electronics anyway. So it pretty much hit all the boxes. But we're going to try and get this thing installed. We're going to put it in the goat barn here, but this is going to be the bear right here. So I'm going to put, the instructions say at least 5 ground rods. I've heard that you need to have something like, what is it, 3 feet per Joule or 6 feet per Joule or something of ground rod. And that was going to be like 9 or 12, maybe it was 12 ground rods. That's not going to happen on this rock with this dirt covered rock that we like to call a farm. So we're going to see what we can do to get those in. I've got a plan for that, so we'll see if it works out. We're going to put in at least 6 ground rods for the ground system, and then I want to put in some lightning protection on this since it's a fairly expensive fencer. And you should have at least one more ground rod in the lightning protection than you do on the fencer itself. So we'll try to put in 7 on the lightning protection. We'll see how this all goes, see if that gets done or not. But we'll get started here. We'll get this hung and then go on from there. Now on to the difficult part, but I think maybe that this will make it go a lot easier. If not, I guess I'll just beat my brains out the rest of the afternoon. But I found these on Amazon, and this is specifically what this is meant for. This is a ground rod driver. So I've got this Bosch hammer drill. I bought it a while back for like $100. It's had a pretty rough life, but it's pretty good at drilling, drilling in concrete. I've done some pretty good size holes with it, so that works pretty well. This is an SDS Plus, goes in that chuck there, and then should slide right over these ground rods. And then I can put this, if I flip this over just on hammer mode, we'll see if we can drive some posts with it. Well, it's a few days later now, and I've got probably 10 hours, 12 hours putting in ground rods. So we'll try and show you what I've got. Hopefully this wind isn't too bad. But, so I've got one here. That one is sticking out about 4 foot, so we've got 4 foot in the ground there. And you can't see very well. I'll show you on a different one. So we've got a wire coming across here. And then I was able to get one in there, and one most of the way in there. And those are entirely too close, but they went in, so I wasn't going to stop. You can see I've got these clamps, got the wire run along the bottom, and then I've just got some like fence staples or steeples put in there on the wire that's connecting them. So that's all one wire. I just stripped the wire off the center, or out of the middle of the wire, and then ran it through the clamp. So from my far rod over there, over to these two, and then to that one. Here's a failed attempt, and now I can't get that out. I thought maybe going in at an angle would help me get around some of these rocks, but that didn't happen. So it's stuck now. I may have to get the tractor or something to get it out. But the same wire, I've got it stapled all along the bottom. And then here's another ground rod. That one made it about a little over 5 foot in the ground. So I've got about a little over 33 feet of ground rod in the ground for these, which I know isn't enough, but I've spent so much time trying to get these in the ground. I'd like to have more. I definitely don't have enough on the lightning protection side. I'm gonna have to do more. So maybe at some point I'll go get the backhoe. I'm thinking about maybe digging a trench or something and starting to drive them in the bottom of that trench and then fill it back in to get the last few feet. I don't know, we'll see. If anybody's got any good ideas on how to get ground rods through rocky soil. I know about 3 feet down, there's kind of a layer from the excavation that I've done around for the house and stuff. There's a layer of like basketball size to I don't know, rocks I can just barely get my arms around. Just a whole bunch of them loose in the ground there. And I know that's what I'm hitting. Sometimes I can get squeezed through a couple of them. Most of the time I just hit one somewhere and I can't make it any farther. But so if anybody's got any good suggestions, I'm open to those. Then my ground wire goes up. You can see it's the black one, run with my temporary extension cord wire. It goes up in the eave, and then I'll show you how it goes into the fencer there. Here's the eave where we come in. Got a little slack, and then go into the fencer. You can see the hot side of the fencer comes out that side, and we just run around that top nailer over and out the far corner over there. So funny thing, up in the corner there, I'm using the double insulated 12 gauge wire. So here's the rest of the coil, and I bought more than I knew that I needed, and I've always heard about leaving a coil of wire ahead of the charger so that it will kind of slow down any lightning strikes that comes in. So what I did is I just left this whole roll and I wired it up there, turned the fencer on, and from what I can tell, or what I've kind of read, is that we were having an induction current put onto the sheet metal of the building with this coil hanging right next to that sheet metal, and as the electricity would go through there was an induction current, which I don't know a lot about, but just kind of what I've read. Basically it was making the sheet metal hot, and then it was grounding out to the poles on the building, so it was popping real loud, and it was definitely in the wall. So I took that out and that went away. That was something interesting that I didn't know about, didn't expect. With the wire coming out of the corner over there, it's going to come down the corner of the building to the fence, and we'll go out there and we'll hook up the lightning protection, and I've got a switch to put in there. So the power comes down here. The first thing we're going to hook up to is this cutout switch. It's handy to have a way to shut the power off to the fence and leave the fencer on to kind of diagnose some problems with the fencer if you ever have them. So we're going to put this in up here. Okay. Let's see. The next thing we're going to put on is this lightning gap, and I'll explain kind of how that works here in a minute. But basically, there's a gap here for the lightning to jump and go down to some ground rods, the ground rods that I needed for that. So we'll see what we can get this put on. So for this, I'm going to go ahead and leave some slack. This goes into the split bolt here. There. I'll need to run a piece from here to there. And naturally my camera died as I was working on that, but here's the end result. So we've got our main power wire coming into the transfer switch, and then we come from the bottom side of the transfer switch to the lightning arrestor, and we connect to one side of the coil, then this is connected, we go to the other side of the coil, and then down to our fence. And then this side, it comes around and is connected to our ground that goes to our ground, our lightning ground rod. So that's a different set of ground rods than we have connected to the fencer. So the idea is that if we have a lightning strike come in on the wire from the fence, it comes in, this coil gives it a little bit of impedance and keeps it from going back to the fencer so fast. And this gap should be small enough that the voltage coming from whatever lightning strike it is, however many thousands of volts it may be, would jump this and go down and go into the ground before it goes back and goes through our fencer. So the whole idea is just that this is a better, easier ground path than what our fencer is going to be. While I was inside a little bit ago, I turned the fencer on and I opened the switch here. So we need to tune this lightning arrestor, and by tuning basically means we just need to set this gap as small as we can without it arcing with just the fencer voltage. So I'm gonna turn this back on, and so we've got power going to the fence. We do not have any power jumping across the gap, so I'm gonna close it up a little bit and see if we can keep it a little bit closer. All right, we've got it set almost as close as it'll go without bending those little tabs. That may be because I don't have a very good ground on the ground side of that yet, so it's not trying to ground out, but we're doing pretty good the way it sits. With the weed load and everything that we've got on it right now, we'll check and see. This is our fencer remote. So if I put that on the wire there, it looks like we're running about 5,800 volts. So that's pretty low, but that's also because I've got fence down everywhere and I've got a pretty good weed load on there. If we switch this over to amps, it looks like we've got a 50 plus amp draw on down towards the left side. One other thing that's cool about this fencer, about this fencer that I talked a little bit about earlier, was the fact that we can shut the fencer off with the remote. So obviously it's on right now. If I hit the off button and we get a good connection back, we're at 0 volts. If I want to turn it back on, and we're back on. So that's super handy for being able to fix the fence and adjust things out there without having to run back or have somebody back here at the fencer turning things back on. But that pretty much wraps it up. At some point I'm going to try and get more ground rods put in this thing, but this should make our winter go a lot smoother keeping the goats in. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe.